Hey, what's up, guys? Mysterious here, and this week we're back with a new episode on the How to Beat series, and this week we're gonna cover Sylas. So let's jump straight into it. Sylas has a lot of strengths and a lot of weaknesses. Um, right now, Sylas kills well. He has insane skirmishing. He's a very flexible champion due to the amount of ults that he can steal and the different champions that are apparent in every single game. He's also quite mobile with his E and with his W. He has a lot of sustain, of course, with his W again. He also has some good gank setup, especially when he gets Everfrost. That's something that we really gotta care about. But the main thing that we're gonna take a look at today are the weaknesses to really check how we can actually beat Sylas. So Sylas has very long cooldowns early. That's something we can really keep in mind when we want to trade with him. He has a rough time CSing under tower. Really has got to use abilities to get that real good happening. And because of that, he also has some mana struggles early. Also, Sylas is very committal. We can really abuse that. I'll go into that a bit further into the video. He's quite bad when behind, also because he is very committal. He has quite mediocre wave clear. Yes, he can clear waves when there's no enemy lane opponent, but he's got to use all of his abilities and his passive stacks to do that. He's also quite bad into bruisers, like champs like Darius, Jax, Renekton. They all just mess him up big time. And his ult cooldowns, skills per champion. I'll also cover that in the next slide. So the main the main weaknesses we gotta keep in mind to actually beat Sylas are these five, and I'll give explanations with each part of them. So first of all, long cooldowns early. So I actually wrote them down here, and these are the numbers that we gotta keep in mind when we play against Sylas mid. Most mid laners have shorter cooldowns than these, so we can use him using these cooldowns as an opportunity for us taking trades. Because he's still regenerating his cooldowns, we can throw our cooldowns at him and he can't really respond. So these cooldowns are crucial to keep in mind against Sylas, especially because they scale down and he also gets a lot of cooldown reduction. So in the early lane, we can abuse his long cooldowns to beat him up. Also, rough time CSing on the tower combined with the mana struggles, we can push him in early. And we can basically just say, all right, Sylas, let's see how good you are and check if you can match our CS. So if we CS perfectly, he will most likely go down a few CS here and there because it's not easy for Sylas to CS under third. Also, if he does so, he will lose a lot of mana and therefore a lot of trading power. The most interesting thing is the fact that Sylas is very committal champion. And we can really abuse this by calling our team to hover. And I would like to make the change here to when I'm playing Sylas, the worst feeling there is you being locked up in lane and not being able to jump onto the enemy lane opponent because you know someone might be hovering around mid lane. And this happens a lot in, for example, the Sylas TF matchup, where TF gets absolutely beat down by Sylas. But what really happens is that junglers or supports usually hover around mid lane to give TF that freedom. And if Sylas ever commits, right, he cannot get out because that's how Sylas works. And he basically gets beat up by support or jungler in that case. And that's how I lost a lot of Sylas games, by just committing without really understanding what kind of threat I could possibly be on, and for example, the enemy jungler just being there out of, just randomly being there and just dying. And once you die, as we discussed before, and like once you're behind, you're gonna have a rough time. Also, Sylas has pretty mediocre wave clear. If we get a lot of wave clear in our kit, we can really use that to clear the minions, right, and maybe get some roams on. This is not my favorite way of beating Sylas, but it's definitely something that we could look at if we want to beat him, and it might work with the other stuff that we have in our team. Finally, a nice little thing to know about Sylas is his ult cooldown skills per champion. And that's not really the cooldown of his ult itself, but rather the cooldown of the ult used. So if we're playing Victor against Sylas, Our Victor ult has, for example, a 90-second cooldown. Sylas, if he steals our ult, cannot steal our ult again for, I think it's like 1.5 times the time that we have our ult. So that would basically be 135 seconds. So if we trade our ultimates and we keep the lane a 1v1, right, that means that the next time we heavy trade with him, he doesn't have our ultimate available to use while we do that. So this can be a nice little thing to keep in mind when we're playing lane against Sylas and we keep it a 1v1 and he steals our ult. So to conclude this, my favorite ways to actually beat Sylas that we have in control currently is using his long cooldowns early. Keep that in mind, learn them, and trade with him when he doesn't have these cooldowns up. Pushing him in early game, but also later if we have the opportunity, because he will go down CS and he will use a lot of his mana to get the creeps. Or asking your jungler and support to hover you. If you're, for example, in a rough matchup and Sylas has to go in to beat you, ask him to hover you, make it a 2v1, and once he commits, he cannot go out. So I think these are the most important things that we got to keep in mind to beat Sylas. Definitely take a look at these 3 points, right? Try to implement them and maybe change your mindset towards understanding of how you can beat Sylas using these methods. So that's going to be this video for how to beat Sylas. If you guys have any questions or comments, leave them down below, and especially which champion we should cover next week. And I wish you all a great day. Thank you for watching.